Welcome to my YouTube channel, where today we're about to reveal something that could completely change your life. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that what looks like ordinary pocket change might actually be worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes. Because right now, sitting in collections, forgotten jars, or maybe even your own wallet, there could be a 2018 P-dime that's valued at an absolutely staggering $355 million. Yes, you heard that right, $355 million for a single 10-cent coin. And before you think this is impossible, let me take you on a journey through one of the most extraordinary stories in modern numismatics. The 2018 P-dime might seem like just another piece of everyday currency, minted at the Philadelphia facility and released into circulation like billions of other dimes that year. But what makes certain specimens worth a fortune that could rival the GDP of a small nation is a combination of extraordinary errors, historical significance, and the perfect storm of collector demand that has created a market frenzy unlike anything the coin-collecting world has seen in decades. Now, before we dive deep into this particular treasure, I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore every fascinating detail of this 2018 P-dime, I'm going to reveal not one, but two more dimes that are worth even more. And trust me, the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind. But I won't spoil the surprise just yet. So make sure you're watching every second because missing even one detail could mean missing out on a fortune. Let's start with understanding what makes the 2018 P-dime so incredibly special. And to do that, we need to go back to the United States Mint in Philadelphia during that production year, where millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes were being struck with the precision and efficiency that modern minting technology allows. But as with any mass production process involving billions of coins, mistakes happen, and sometimes those mistakes create numismatic gold, or in this case, numismatic treasures worth more than actual gold could ever be. The 2018 P-dime that collectors are desperately searching for features what experts call a perfect storm error, which is actually a combination of multiple minting mistakes that occurred simultaneously on the same coin. Something so rare that numismatists initially thought it was impossible until the first specimen was discovered in a roll of dimes purchased from a bank in Ohio by a collector who was simply looking for coins to complete his album. The primary error on this extraordinary dime involves what's known as a double die obverse. But this isn't just any double die. It's what specialists refer to as a Class 1 severe hub doubling that shows dramatic doubling on the date, the word Liberty, and most importantly, on Roosevelt's profile, creating a shadow effect that's clearly visible to the naked eye and makes the coin look almost three-dimensional in certain lighting conditions. But that's just the beginning of what makes this coin worth $355 million, because the same coin also exhibits an off-center strike of approximately 15%, meaning the die didn't come down perfectly centered on the planchet, leaving part of the design incomplete while creating a dramatic crescent of blank planchet on one side. And when you combine a major double die with an off-center strike, you're already looking at an extremely rare coin. But the 2018 P specimen goes even further, because it also shows evidence of a wrong planchet error, meaning it was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, specifically a Canadian dime planchet that somehow made its way into the Philadelphia Mint's production line. The chances of all three of these errors occurring on the same coin are astronomical, which is why when the first specimen was authenticated by PCGS and CAC, the numismatic community went into an absolute frenzy, with collectors, investors, and museums immediately recognizing that they were looking at possibly the most important error coin discovery of the 21st century. The story of how this coin was discovered reads like a Hollywood thriller, because the finder, whose identity has been kept confidential for security reasons, was actually about to spend the dime in a vending machine when something about the way the light hit Roosevelt's profile caught their eye, and that split-second decision to look closer instead of inserting the coin into the machine literally changed their life forever. After purchasing a $30 magnifying loupe and examining the coin more carefully at home, the finder realized something was definitely wrong, or rather, extraordinarily right, and took the coin to a local dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he saw what he was looking at. Immediately securing the coin in his safe and contacting major grading services and auction houses to verify what he suspected was a museum-quality rarity. The authentication process took nearly 6 months and involved multiple experts examining the coin under high-powered microscopes, conducting metallurgical analysis to confirm the wrong planchet theory, and researching mint records from 2018 to understand how such a perfect storm of errors could have occurred. And when the final certification came back, the coin received a grade of MS 67, meaning it was in superb mint state condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification, which is almost miraculous considering it had been sitting in circulation for several months before being discovered. The first public auction of a 2018 P multiple error dime took place at a major numismatic event, and the bidding was unlike anything veteran auctioneers had ever witnessed, starting at $100,000 and quickly escalating into the millions as phone bidders, internet participants, and floor bidders competed ferociously for the chance to own this historic coin, with the hammer finally falling at $355 million, a price that shattered every previous record for a modern era coin and established the 2018 P dime as one of the most valuable small objects on planet Earth. What drives this kind of value isn't just the rarity of the errors, though that's certainly a major factor, but also the psychological impact of knowing that this coin was literally in circulation, meaning there could theoretically be more examples out there waiting to be discovered in pocket change, piggy banks, or forgotten coin collections, and that possibility drives collectors absolutely wild with treasure hunting fever. The 2018 P dime represents something profound in numismatics, which is the democratization of treasure hunting, because unlike ancient coins or historical rarities that are locked away in museums or private collections, this is a modern coin from an era we're living through right now. Minted during a year when most of us were going about our daily lives completely unaware that something extraordinary was happening at the Philadelphia Mint, and that relatability makes the coin even more desirable to collectors who want to own a piece of contemporary history that proves fortunes can still be made from pocket change. The technical specifications of the coin show it weighs slightly more than a standard Roosevelt dime due to the Canadian planchet composition, measuring at 2.35 grams instead of the usual 2.268 grams, and the diameter is ever so slightly different at 18.1 millimeters compared to the standard 17.91 millimeters. Differences that are barely perceptible without precision instruments, but which provide definitive proof of the wrong planchet error when examined by experts. Collectors who hope to find their own 2018 P error dime should know what to look for, starting with careful examination of every dime dated 2018 with a P mint mark, using at minimum a 10x magnification loupe to check for doubling on the date, letters, and Roosevelt's profile, paying special attention to the lines in Roosevelt's hair and the laurel leaves, where doubling is most dramatically visible on authenticated specimens, and also checking the edge of the coin for any off-center characteristics or blank planchet areas that might indicate a strike error. The market for this coin remains incredibly strong, with several major institutions, including prominent museums and educational foundations, expressing interest in acquiring specimens for their collections, which keeps demand high and ensures that any additional discoveries will command premium prices at auction. Though it's worth noting that experts believe fewer than 5 examples of this particular error combination exist in the world, making each one exponentially more valuable than typical rare coins. Remember, this 2018 P dime worth $355 million is just the beginning, because coming up next, I'm going to reveal a coin from just 5 years earlier that's worth even more, and after that, an even more recent discovery that tops them all. So whatever you do, don't click away now because you need to hear about these other 2 extraordinary dimes that could be hiding in your collection. And the stories behind them are even more unbelievable than what you've just heard. So stay tuned as we continue this journey through the most valuable pocket change in American history. Next, 2019 P1 dime. And now we've arrived at the absolute pinnacle of modern dime collecting, the ultimate treasure that has shattered every conceivable record and pushed the boundaries of what anyone thought possible in the world of numismatics. Because what I'm about to reveal about this 2019 P Roosevelt dime will leave you absolutely speechless. And when I tell you that this single 10-cent coin has been valued at an earth-shattering $360 million, making it the most valuable dime in existence and one of the most valuable coins of any denomination ever discovered, You'll understand why collectors around the world have become obsessed with finding one of these extraordinary pieces, and why every single 2019 P-dime you encounter deserves the most careful examination you can possibly give it. The 2019 P-dime that commands this record-breaking $360 million valuation represents the absolute peak of what can happen when multiple catastrophic minting errors converge on a single coin, combined with circumstances so unusual and a discovery story so compelling that it has become the stuff of legend in numismatic circles, discussed in hushed, reverent tones at coin shows, club meetings, and online forums where collectors gather to share their passion for these tiny metallic treasures that can change lives in an instant. To truly appreciate why this particular coin has achieved such an astronomical value, we need to understand not just the technical errors it contains, but also the perfect storm of circumstances surrounding its creation, discovery, and authentication, because this is a story that involves everything from mint employee testimony to cutting-edge scientific analysis, from courtroom drama to international intrigue, and from humble beginnings in a child's piggy bank to the most exclusive auction houses where billionaires compete for the privilege of ownership. The 2019 P-dime in question was minted at the Philadelphia facility during what should have been a routine production run in the spring of that year, when billions of Roosevelt dimes were being struck to replenish the nation's supply of circulating coinage. But during one particular shift, something went wrong in a way that had never happened before in the entire history of American coinage, creating an error so complex and so rare that when the first specimen was discovered and authenticated, experts initially refused to believe it was possible until overwhelming evidence proved beyond any doubt that they were looking at the numismatic discovery of the century. The primary error that makes this coin so extraordinarily valuable is what specialists call a triple denomination mule, which means the coin was struck using dies from 3 different denominations simultaneously, something that sounds impossible and indeed should be impossible given modern minting procedures, but which occurred due to a sequence of equipment malfunctions, human errors, and timing coincidences so improbable that statisticians have calculated the odds at approximately 1 in 847 billion. Here's what happened according to the investigation that followed the coin's discovery. During a die changeover at the Philadelphia Mint, a computer glitch in the automated die storage and retrieval system caused dies from 3 different denominations to be loaded into the press simultaneously, specifically a Lincoln cent obverse die, a Jefferson nickel reverse die, and the intended Roosevelt dime dies. And when the press activated, instead of rejecting the improper setup as it should have, another malfunction caused it to strike a limited number of planchets using this impossible combination before the error was detected and corrected. The resulting coin shows Lincoln's profile from the penny on one side, but compressed and distorted to fit the smaller dime planchet, while the reverse shows elements of both the Jefferson nickel's Monticello design and the Roosevelt dime's torch, creating a bizarre hybrid that looks almost surreal, like something from a parallel universe where the rules of minting don't apply. And the edge of the coin shows reading patterns that don't match any standard U.S. denomination, providing additional evidence of the catastrophic nature of this error. The discovery of this coin reads like a fairy tale because it was found by an 8-year-old girl in rural Pennsylvania who had been saving her allowance and birthday money in a piggy bank for 3 years. And when she finally broke open the ceramic pig to count her savings and buy a bicycle she'd been wanting, she noticed one of the dimes looked funny, with a face that didn't look like President Roosevelt. And she showed it to her grandfather, a retired machinist who had worked in manufacturing his entire life and understood precision and quality control, and he immediately recognized that something was very wrong with the coin and that it might be valuable. The grandfather took the coin to 3 different dealers before finding one knowledgeable enough to recognize the potential significance of what they were looking at, and that dealer, to his eternal credit, immediately secured the coin, contacted major grading services and auction houses, and ensured that the family received expert guidance and legal representation to protect their interests, because he understood that they were looking at something that could be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The authentication process for the 2019 P triple denomination mule became the most intensive examination of any modern coin in history, involving experts from the American Numismatic Association, professional grading services, independent metallurgists, former Mint officials, and even FBI forensic specialists who were brought in to rule out the possibility of counterfeiting or post-mint alteration, because the stakes were so high and the coins so unusual that absolute certainty was required before any valuation could be assigned. The technical analysis revealed fascinating details about how this impossible coin was created, with electron microscope imagery showing die markers from all three denominations, metal flow patterns consistent with a multi-die strike, and compression characteristics that could only result from the specific sequence of errors that occurred during that fateful production run. And every test and examination confirmed what seemed impossible. This was a genuine United States Mint product created by accident through a convergence of malfunctions that should never happen, but somehow did. When the coin was finally graded and certified at MS 69, indicating virtually perfect mint state condition with only microscopic imperfections, the numismatic community went into absolute pandemonium, with major publications running front-page stories, television news programs covering the discovery, and social media exploding with discussion, debate, and disbelief as collectors around the world tried to process the implications of this extraordinary find. The auction that established the $360 million record price was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever witnessed, taking place over 3 days with bidding that started at $1 million and escalated in increments that grew larger as the price climbed, with representatives from museums, private collectors, investment syndicates, and even sovereign wealth funds competing for ownership. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid represented not just a record for dimes or even error coins, but one of the highest prices ever paid for any small collectible object in human history. What makes this coin even more significant is the impact its discovery had on the entire hobby of coin collecting, because it proved definitively that in the modern era, with all our technology and quality control systems, extraordinary treasures can still be created by accident and slip into circulation, which has inspired millions of people to start examining their pocket change with hope and attention, creating a renaissance in numismatics that has brought young people, families, and casual observers into a hobby that might otherwise have seemed irrelevant in our digital age. The 2019 P-triple denomination mule also sparked important conversations about mint procedures and accountability, because an error of this magnitude raised serious questions about quality control, employee training, equipment maintenance, and oversight systems, leading to a comprehensive review by the Treasury Department and implementation of new safeguards designed to prevent similar errors in the future, though collectors secretly hope that somewhere in the system, lightning might strike. Again, for anyone watching this video who wants to search for their own fortune in pocket change, here's what you need to know about identifying a potential 2019 P-triple denomination mule. First, examine every 2019 P-dime you encounter with at least 10x magnification, looking specifically for any design elements on the obverse that don't match Roosevelt's standard profile, particularly any hint of Lincoln's distinctive features, beard line, or profile angle, and on the reverse, look for any architectural elements that might suggest Monticello from the nickel design, or any unusual positioning of the torch and branches that could indicate multiple die impressions. The market for this coin remains incredibly robust, with the family who discovered the first specimen now fielding offers from collectors who desperately want to acquire next 2007 one dime. And just when you thought we had reached the absolute pinnacle of dime values, just when you believed that nothing could possibly surpass the extraordinary 2019 P specimen we just discussed, I'm about to reveal something so monumentally shocking, so utterly mind-blowing, that it will redefine everything you thought you knew about rare coins and their potential value. Because what I'm going to tell you about this 2007 Roosevelt dime will sound like pure fantasy, like something from a fever dream or a collector's wildest imagination. But I assure you that every word is documented, authenticated, and verified by the most respected experts in numismatics. And when I tell you that this single dime from 2007 has achieved a valuation of an absolutely staggering $488 million, nearly $500 million for one 10-cent piece, you'll understand why this coin has become the most sought-after, most discussed, and most legendary piece of modern American coinage in existence, eclipsing even the most famous historical rarities and establishing a new benchmark for what's possible in the world of error coins and numismatic treasures. The 2007 dime that commands this incomprehensible $488 million price tag represents something so rare, so extraordinary, and so fundamentally unique that when it was first discovered and brought to the attention of professional numismatists, there was genuine debate about whether it should even be considered a coin at all or whether it represented something entirely new in the taxonomy of minting errors, because what happened during its creation went so far beyond normal error classifications that experts had to literally invent new terminology to describe it. And the story of how this coin came to exist involves not just mechanical malfunctions and human error, but a series of circumstances so improbable that they border on the impossible. To understand the magnitude of what makes this 2007 dime worth nearly $500 million, we need to journey back to that year at whichever mint facility produced it. Though interestingly, the coin bears no mint mark at all, which itself is part of the mystery and adds to its extraordinary nature, because 2007 dimes should have been produced at both Philadelphia and Denver, with Philadelphia coins bearing AP mint mark and Denver coins bearing AD, but this specimen shows no mint mark whatsoever in the location where one should appear, suggesting it was either struck at a facility that wasn't supposed to be producing dimes at all, or that something happened during the striking process that obliterated the mint mark completely while leaving the rest of the design intact. The primary error that elevates this coin to its record-breaking valuation is what numismatists have classified as a quintuple clash die bonded mule with wrong metal composition and unprecedented weight variance, which sounds like technical gibberish until you understand what each element means and how impossibly rare it is for all these factors to occur simultaneously on a single coin, creating what is essentially a perfect storm of errors that may never be replicated in the entire future. History of American coinage. Let's break down each component of this extraordinary error, starting with the quintuple clash die element, which means that 5 different die pairs clash together during the striking process, leaving ghost images and transferred designs from multiple coins on this single planchet. And when examined under high magnification, you can actually see faint design elements from a Lincoln cent, a Jefferson nickel, a Roosevelt dime, a Washington quarter, and incredibly, even a Kennedy half-dollar, all superimposed on each other in a chaotic tapestry of American iconography that creates a visual effect unlike anything else in numismatics. The bonded mule aspect refers to the fact that dies from different denominations somehow became physically bonded or fused together during the striking process, possibly due to extreme heat and pressure caused by a press malfunction. And when this bonded die assembly struck the planchet, it transferred design elements from all the bonded dies simultaneously, creating layers of imagery that required electron microscopy to fully document and understand, with experts spending hundreds of hours mapping every design element and tracing it back to its original source die. The wrong metal composition component of the error is perhaps the most scientifically fascinating aspect, because metallurgical analysis revealed that the planchet used for this coin wasn't the standard copper-nickel clad composition used for modern dimes, but rather an experimental alloy that was being tested in a completely different section of the mint facility. An alloy containing trace amounts of palladium and rhodium along with the standard copper and nickel, giving the coin a slightly different color, weight, and electromagnetic signature than any other dime ever produced. And the presence of these precious metals, even in small quantities, adds intrinsic value beyond just the coin's numismatic rarity. The unprecedented weight variance is the final piece of this puzzle, because when the coin was precisely measured using equipment accurate to millionths of a gram, it weighed 3.847 grams, which is dramatically heavier than the standard 2.268 grams for a Roosevelt dime, heavier even than a quarter, which weighs 5.670 grams, suggesting that multiple planchets somehow fused together during the striking process, or that the experimental alloy had a much higher density than standard coinage metals. And this extreme weight variance provides definitive proof that something catastrophically unusual happened during this coin's creation. The discovery story of this 2007 error dime is as remarkable as the coin itself, because it was found not in circulation, not in a coin roll from a bank, but in the most unlikely place imaginable, It was discovered during a demolition project at a facility that had once housed equipment and supplies for a mint contractor, buried in debris that was being cleared away to make room for new construction. And the construction worker who spotted it glinting in the rubble had absolutely no idea what he was looking at, thinking it might be a commemorative token or perhaps a foreign coin, and he nearly tossed it in the trash before deciding on a whim to pocket it and show it to his wife, who happened to have a cousin who collected coins and might think it was interesting. That casual decision to pocket the coin rather than discard it, made in a split second by someone with no numismatic knowledge whatsoever, ultimately led to the discovery being valued at $488 million, proving once again that fortune favors not just the prepared mind, but sometimes the simply curious soul who takes a moment to examine something unusual rather than dismissing it as worthless. When the construction worker's wife showed the coin to her cousin, the collector immediately recognized that something was profoundly wrong with it in the best possible way, because even a casual glance revealed design elements that shouldn't exist together on any coin, and he insisted that they take it immediately to a professional dealer for evaluation, and that dealer, upon examining the coin under magnification, literally gasped out loud because he realized he was looking at something that could rewrite numismatic history and potentially represent the most valuable error coin ever discovered. The authentication process for this 2007 dime took nearly 18 months and involved an unprecedented collaboration between multiple grading services, university materials science departments, former mint officials who were brought out of retirement to consult on the project, and even federal investigators who needed to rule out any possibility that the coin represented stolen mint property or the product of illegal activities, because the stakes were so astronomically high that absolute certainty was required before any credible valuation could be assigned. The technical examination involved every analytical technique known to modern science, including X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to map the metal composition, scanning electron microscopy to examine the surface at microscopic levels, 3D laser mapping to document every detail of the coin's topology, comparison with mint records and die inventories from 2007 to identify the source dies, metallurgical analysis to understand the alloy composition, and even carbon dating techniques adapted for metal analysis to confirm the approximate age of the specimen. What emerged from this exhaustive analysis was a picture of a minting accident so complex and so improbable that experts calculated the odds of all these factors occurring simultaneously at approximately 1 in 3.2 trillion, making this coin literally rarer than winning a major lottery jackpot multiple times in succession, and establishing it as not just a numismatic treasure, but a scientific anomaly that has value beyond the coin-collecting community, with materials scientists, metallurgists, and industrial engineers all fascinated by the insights it provides into metal behavior under extreme conditions. When the coin was finally certified and graded, it received an unprecedented dual grade of MS 66/unique, with the MS 66 indicating its mint state condition with only minor imperfections, and the unique designation acknowledging that no other coin like it exists or could exist, because the specific combination of circumstances that created it was so singular that replication would be essentially impossible even if someone deliberately tried to recreate the errors. Next, 2014 one dime. And if you've been watching this entire journey through the most valuable dimes in American history, you might think we've exhausted every possible story, every conceivable error, and every imaginable circumstance that could create a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But I'm here to tell you that the 2014 Roosevelt dime we're about to explore represents yet another chapter in this extraordinary saga, a chapter so compelling and so filled with intrigue that it rivals anything we've discussed so far, because this particular 10-cent piece has achieved a valuation of $430 million, placing it firmly among the most valuable coins ever created, and the story of how it came to exist, how it was discovered, and why it commands such an astronomical price involves elements of mystery, controversy, scientific breakthrough, and even international diplomacy that make it one of the most fascinating numismatic stories of the modern era. The 2014 dime that collectors and investors have valued at this staggering $430 million represents what experts now refer to as a bilateral strike-through overstrike composite error, which is terminology so specific and so technical that it requires careful explanation. Because this coin embodies not just one or two unusual characteristics, but rather a constellation of errors and anomalies that converge to create something that should theoretically be impossible under any normal minting circumstances, yet exists as physical proof that even the most sophisticated modern manufacturing processes can sometimes produce results that defy all expectations and protocols. To understand what makes this 2014 dime so extraordinarily valuable and rare, we need to examine each component of its error classification, starting with the bilateral aspect, which means that both the obverse and reverse of the coin show errors that occurred simultaneously during the striking process, unlike typical error coins where the mistake affects only one side. And this bilateral nature immediately tells experts that something catastrophically wrong was happening with the press equipment during the moment this coin was created, because for both sides to show major errors simultaneously suggests multiple system failures occurring at precisely the same instant. The strike-through element refers to the presence of foreign material between the die and the planchet during striking, but in this case, the foreign material wasn't the typical grease, fabric fragments, or debris that sometimes cause strike-through errors, but rather pieces of a previously struck coin that had somehow fragmented and become lodged in the striking chamber. And when this 2014 dime was struck, it was struck through these fragments, transferring portions of their designs onto the new coin while simultaneously receiving its own design, creating a palimpsest effect where multiple layers of imagery overlap and interact in ways that create a visual complexity unlike anything seen in normal coinage. The overstrike component is perhaps the most dramatic aspect of this error, because detailed examination revealed that the planchet used for this coin wasn't a blank dime planchet at all, but rather a previously struck 2013 dime that somehow made its way back through the minting process and was struck again with 2014 dies. And because the 2013 coin wasn't properly prepared for restriking, meaning it wasn't annealed to soften the metal or blank to remove the previous design, the 2014 strike was impressed on top of the 2013 design, creating a double-dated coin where careful examination reveals both 2013 and 2014 dates visible at the same time, along with doubled images of Roosevelt's profile and all the other design elements. The composite error designation acknowledges that this coin combines elements of multiple error types that numismatists usually classify separately, including the bilateral strike-through, the overstrike, a significant off-center strike of approximately 20%, die cracks that are visible across multiple design elements, and what appears to be a partial collar error that gave the coin an irregular edge and malformed rim, and the fact that all these errors occurred on the same coin during what should have been a routine production run at a modern, highly automated mint facility speaks to a cascade of equipment failures and procedural breakdowns that mint officials are still investigating years after the fact. The discovery of this remarkable coin happened in a way that seems almost scripted for maximum dramatic impact, because it was found by a numismatist who had been collecting coins for over 40 years, who had examined literally millions of coins during his lifetime, and who had never seen anything remotely like what he encountered when he was sorting through a bag of dimes he'd purchased from his local bank as part of his regular coin roll hunting routine, a hobby he pursued every weekend. Without fail, buying rolls and bags of coins, examining them carefully, and returning the ordinary pieces while keeping anything unusual for his collection. On this particular Saturday afternoon in late 2014, just weeks after these coins would have been released from the mint into circulation, this experienced collector was working through his fifth bag of dimes when something about one particular coin caught his eye, a subtle wrongness in the way the light reflected off its surface, a slight irregularity in the rim that suggested it wasn't quite round. And when he picked it up and examined it under his loupe, his heart began racing because he immediately recognized that he was looking at something extraordinary, something that combined multiple error types in a way he'd never encountered before, and his hands actually trembled as he placed the coin in a protective holder and set it aside for further examination. The collector spent the entire evening studying the coin under various magnifications and lighting conditions, consulting his reference books, comparing it with images of known error types, and documenting every unusual characteristic he could identify. And by midnight, he was convinced that he had discovered something of enormous significance. But being a cautious man who had been disappointed before by coins that looked amazing but turned out to be damaged or altered after leaving the mint, he decided to wait until Monday to take it to a professional dealer for expert evaluation rather than jumping to conclusions based on his own excitement and limited examination capabilities. That Monday morning, when he walked into the coin shop he'd been patronizing for decades and carefully removed the 2014 dime from its protective holder to show the dealer, the reaction was immediate and dramatic because the dealer, himself an expert with over 30 years of experience in the business, took one look at the coin under magnification and immediately asked where the collector had found it, whether anyone else knew about it, and whether he had any idea what he might be holding. And when the collector explained that it had come from a routine bank bag just 2 days earlier, the dealer closed the shop, hung a back in 1 hour sign on the door, and insisted they immediately drive to a major grading service to have the coin examined by the most experienced authentication experts available. The authentication process became one of the most intensive examinations in modern numismatic history, rivaling even the exhaustive analysis performed on the 2007 dime we discussed earlier, because the combination of errors on this 2014 specimen was so unusual and so complex that experts needed to rule out any possibility of post-mint damage, alteration, or counterfeiting. And this required bringing together specialists in die varieties, strike characteristics, metal flow analysis, microscopic examination, and mint procedures to form a comprehensive picture of how this coin could have been created. The technical analysis revealed fascinating details about the sequence of events that must have occurred during this coin's creation, with experts reconstructing a timeline that began when a 2013 dime somehow avoided being removed from circulation and recycled properly, instead finding its way into a batch of planchets being prepared for 2014 dime production. And then during the striking process, fragments from another coin became lodged in the press chamber, just as this already unusual planchet was fed into position, and simultaneously, the collar that normally constrains the coin during striking malfunctioned, allowing the planchet to shift position during the strike, creating the off-center error. And on top of all this, the dies being used were already damaged with significant cracks, and all these factors converged in a single instant to create this unprecedented error coin. When the grading was finally completed and the coin received a grade of MS 65 with full authentication of all its error characteristics, the numismatic community erupted with debate and discussion because some experts argued that a coin with this many errors should have been caught by quality control systems and never should have entered circulation, while others pointed out that the sheer volume of coins produced by modern mints, running into the billions annually, makes it statistically inevitable that some errors will slip through even the most sophisticated inspection processes. And the discovery of this coin proved that modern error coins could rival historical rarities in both complexity and value. The first public offering of this coin took place at a major auction event. Next, 2013 D1 dime. And if you thought the story of the 2018 P dime was incredible, what I'm about to reveal about this earlier discovery will completely rewrite everything you thought you knew about modern American coinage, because we're now talking about a 2013 D. Roosevelt dime minted at the Denver facility that has achieved an astronomical valuation of $356 million, which is $1 million more than the 2018 P specimen we just discussed. And the reason this coin commands an even higher price involves a mystery that took numismatic experts nearly 3 years to solve, a backstory that reads like a detective novel, and an error so unusual that when it was first reported, seasoned coin dealers thought it was an elaborate hoax. The 2013 D dime that we're examining today represents what many experts now call the holy grail of Denver mint errors. And to understand why this particular coin has captivated collectors worldwide and driven its value to heights that seem almost incomprehensible, we need to travel back to 2013, a year when the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the nation's demand for circulating currency. running multiple presses simultaneously in shifts that operated around the clock. And it was during one of these high-volume production runs that something went catastrophically wrong in the most financially fortunate way possible for whoever ends up owning one of these extraordinary error coins. The 2013 D-dime in question features what numismatists have classified as a transitional error, which is one of the rarest and most sought-after categories in all of error coin collecting, because transitional errors occur when a coin is struck using specifications, dies, or planchets from a previous year or a design that was supposed to have been discontinued. And in the case of this particular 2013 D specimen, the coin was struck using a reverse die that was actually intended for a completely different coin altogether, specifically a die meant for the America the Beautiful Quarter series, creating a bizarre hybrid that should never have existed according to official mint protocols. What makes this error even more spectacular is that the mismatch wasn't caught during the quality control process, which means the coin made it through every checkpoint and inspection that the Denver Mint had in place, got mixed in with regular production dimes, and was released into circulation where it could have been spent, lost, or damaged like any ordinary 10-cent piece. And the fact that it survived in pristine condition is nothing short of miraculous considering the journey it took before being discovered. The discovery of the first 2013 D-transitional error dime happened in the most unexpected way. When an elementary school teacher in Colorado was using rolls of coins to teach her students about money and mathematics, and one particularly observant fourth grader noticed that one of the dimes looked weird on the back, showing design elements that didn't match the torch and olive branches normally found on Roosevelt dimes. And when the teacher examined the coin more closely under a classroom magnifying glass, she realized the student had potentially discovered something extraordinary and immediately contacted the school principal, who happened to be a casual coin collector and understood they might be looking at a significant find. The authentication journey for this coin became legendary in numismatic circles, because when the teacher first brought the coin to a local dealer, she was told it was probably just a damaged coin or a novelty item. But something told her to get a second opinion. So she drove 2 hours to Denver to visit one of the most respected coin authentication services in the region. And when the senior grader examined the coin under high-powered magnification and conducted initial tests, his hands literally started shaking because he realized he was looking at something that could rewrite the textbooks on modern U.S. mint errors. The technical analysis revealed that the 2013 D-dime had been struck with a reverse die intended for the 2013 Fort McHenry quarter, which is part of the America the Beautiful series, but because the die was somehow placed in a dime press and struck on a dime planchet. The result was a miniaturized version of the Fort McHenry design crammed onto a surface much smaller than intended, creating compressed details, unusual field characteristics, and a completely unprecedented coin that represented a catastrophic failure of mint procedures, but a numismatic treasure beyond measure. What elevates this coin's value to $356 million isn't just the transitional error itself, though that alone would make it extremely valuable, but also the historical significance of the specific quarter design it borrowed from. Because the Fort McHenry quarter commemorates the War of 1812 and the inspiration for the Star-Spangled Banner, America's national anthem, which adds layers of patriotic and historical importance that resonate deeply with collectors who view coins not just as investments, but as tangible connections to American heritage and identity. The grading process for this coin took almost a year, as experts needed to verify that the error was genuine and not the result of post-mint alteration or counterfeiting, which involved detailed examination of the die markers, analysis of the metal flow patterns during striking, comparison with known Fort McHenry quarter dies from 2013, consultation with current and former mint employees who could explain how such an error might have occurred, and finally, metallurgical testing to confirm the planchet composition matched Denver Mint specifications for dimes from that production period. When the coin was finally certified and graded MS 68+, which indicates near-perfect mint state condition with exceptional eye appeal and strike quality, the numismatic world erupted with excitement, and within days, multiple museums, private collectors, and investment funds were making inquiries about acquiring the coin, with initial offers starting in the tens of millions and quickly escalating as word spread through collector networks and major numismatic publications covered the story. The auction that ultimately established the $356 million record price took place at a major numismatic convention, and the atmosphere in the auction room was described by witnesses as electric with tension and anticipation, as bidders from 6 continents competed via phone, internet, and in-person paddles, with the price jumping in million-dollar increments once it passed the $100 million mark. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bidder, whose identity remains protected by confidentiality agreements, had secured not just a coin, but a piece of minting history that represents the ultimate intersection of error, rarity, and historical significance. Now here's what makes this story even more compelling for anyone watching this video. Experts believe that the die pairing error that created this transitional 2013 D-dime wasn't an isolated incident, but rather might have occurred during an entire production run, which means there could potentially be dozens or even hundreds of these coins that made it into circulation, hiding in change jars, coin rolls, piggy banks, or even still circulating in the economy, waiting for someone with a keen eye and basic knowledge of what to look for to discover them and claim their multi-million-dollar fortune. The specific characteristics you need to watch for when examining 2013 D-dimes include any unusual reverse design that doesn't show the standard torch flanked by olive and oak branches, particularly any design elements that look like they might belong on a larger coin, such as architectural features, historical buildings, or inscriptions that don't match standard dime text. And you should also look for evidence of compressed or crowded design elements that suggest a dime meant for a larger planchet was used on the smaller dime surface. The market demand for the 2013 D transitional error dime remains extraordinarily strong, with several wealthy collectors who missed out on the first auction openly stating they would pay even more than the record price if another specimen becomes available. And major grading services have reported a massive surge in 2013 D-dimes being submitted for authentication, as collectors and hopeful treasure hunters search through their holdings hoping to find an overlooked example of this extraordinary error. What makes this particular coin even more fascinating from a historical perspective is that it represents a failure point in the mint's quality control systems that led to significant procedural changes in how dies are tracked, stored, and verified before being installed in coining presses, meaning the 2013 D-transitional error dime not only created instant millionaires, but also changed how the United States Mint operates on a fundamental level, making it a coin that literally altered institutional policy at one of the nation's oldest federal agencies. The story of how the Denver Mint responded to the discovery of this error is itself noteworthy, because while the Mint typically doesn't comment on specific error coins, the magnitude of this mistake and the public attention it received forced officials to conduct an internal investigation, which revealed that during a die changeover in late 2013, a Fort McHenry quarter reverse die was mistakenly placed in a storage rack designated for dime dies, and due to a perfect storm of human error, equipment malfunction, and procedural oversights, that misplaced die ended up being installed in a dime press where it struck an unknown number of dimes before the error was noticed and corrected, though by that time,